authentication using external servers. Now in this video we'll see how to configure authentication by using some external servers, and I'm going to show you the configuration what should be done on the router and also on the TACACS server. So we will be simulating this lab with a packet tracer here, where I'm going to simulate some external AAA TACACS server in a packet tracer here. So there are 4 steps we need to configure on the AAA client. Like most of the configuration is same as what we discussed earlier in the local database. Like first we need to start up the AAA process by using AAA new model command. And after that we need to tell the router, because I want the user from here, when he telnet or SSH, he must get authenticated based on the external server. But the router should know where is your TACACS server. So we need to configure the TACACS server, what is the IP address, and then also we need to configure some keys to be exchanged between the AAA client and the server. So we will be configuring some key between the client and the server. So this is like authenticating the client and the servers. So this key has to match on both the sides. So whatever the key I'm going to use on the router 1, it has to match the same key on the AAA server as well. So we use a local user account, the local user account as a fallback option, because I want to configure the AAA where it has to use the TACACS server as a primary authentication method, and if it fails due to some reason, we should be able to fall back with a local user account. So we need to enable the AAA for the login, and the list name, authentication list, is CCI. So authentication list tells what are the authentication methods you want to use, with a name called CCI here. And the first method should be TACACS, and the second method should be based on the local database. And then we need to apply this AAA authentication list on the VTY line, so that any user who is trying to enter through VTY line will be authenticated based on the list. And this list says that it has to use local TACACS authentication, external server TACACS authentication, and if it fails, it has to fall back to the local authentication. Again, on the server side, we will be configuring 2 steps, like adding the device as a client and creating the user accounts. We'll see these steps anyway when we get into the configuration. So I got a pre-configured topology with all the IP addressing on the router. So the router 1 is my AAA client. So in my scenario, this router 1 is my AAA client, and my TACACS server is on 192.168.1.1. So the first thing, we'll go to router 1 and we'll configure, saying that AAA, we need to enable the AAA. So it's like a fresh configurations. And then we need to tell the TACACS server is on 192.168.1.1, and the key. We also need to define the key, and the key is, let's say, Cisco 123 I'm using here. Now once we configure the TACACS server, now we need to enable a AAA. Already we did that. So it's better to configure the local user account, so that in case if the TACACS server fail, then we can still, we should be able to log in with a local user account. So I'm using the password as admin123, ny123, so just ignore this one. And then I need to enable the AAA authentication. So once you enable the AAA authentication, it is for login. Login is for VTY or console lines. So we say login, and then we can either use a default. Default will be automatically enabled on all the lines. So I'll be using some specific name, and then what is the first method you want to use? The first method will be based on the server with a group, a protocol TACACS. So I'll be using TACACS protocol. And the second option, I can still say radius if I have a specific radius servers. So I'm using a local option as a fallback authentication. And then we need to apply this AAA authentication list on the line VTY, on the VTY line. Now once you are done with this, now the next step is we want authentication should be done based on the TACACS, right? So the next thing is we need to also configure the ACS server with these 2 steps. because the ACS server must know who is the client, that is router 1 in my case. If you have router 2, you need to add router 2 also, switch 1, switch 2, all these clients you can add, you need to add them. So at this point of time we just have only router 1, and the next thing is we need to create some user account. So I'll be using a user account of user 1 and the user 1 and the password is also user 1, just to make it simple. So of course you can, so I'll be creating 2 user accounts, user 1 and user 2 on the ACS server. So probably here in the packet tracer I'm going to simulate the ACS servers, because here at the NA level I'm not getting into actual ACS servers, but definitely when you get into CCNP you'll be using the real ACS server inside the VMware. But here we can simulate some ACS server here inside the services. You got an option of AAA, so we need to enable the option of AAA on, and of course here we have to select which protocol we want to use to communicate between the server and the client. And the client IP address, like here you have 2 options. One option is we are going to add the router 1 as a AAA client, and the second option here we will be adding the user accounts. So I'm saying the client name is router 1 and the client IP address in my scenario it is 192.168.1.100, the router IP address, and the key we have to use the same key what we have configured on the router. If you remember, we have configured some key here, and of course we need to say add. Like that we can add router 2, switch 1. Anyway, I'm just adding router 2 just for testing purpose, because anyway I am not enabling AAA on that, but you can try this one as an additional lab. So I'm selecting TACACS like that, and then the user accounts we need to add the user 1. I'm just using the same username and the password just to make it simple, but in the production networks you'll be using some complicated passwords. Done. So this is something we need to do. Now for verifying we need to get into some client device. So from the 1.3 computer I'll try to telnet on the router 1. So I'm expecting the router 1 will be sending the credentials to the TACACS server, because we have already configured who is TACACS. So let's go to the router, the PC, and the first thing I'll try to make sure that this PC have reachability to my gateway. That's a basic thing I need to check, because if I don't have reachability then there will be a problem. So you can see I have reachability, so which means I can telnet to my router, and this time I'm going to use the user account which are configured, the user accounts which I created on the ACS server, the user 1 and the user 1, and you can see I'm able to log in with the user account. So let me try with the user 2, and the user 2. I should be able to log in. So because we configured on the router to send these credentials to the external server, and on this external server we have created the user account and we added the router 1 as a client. So if you want to add the router 2, switch 1 and switch to these devices, you need to follow the same process. Now for testing wise, let me try to log in with my admin account, the local user account. So it doesn't allow me to log in, because the reason is this account is not present in the TACACS server, because when this user is trying to log in to the router, it's going to send out a request to the server, and on the server this admin account is not present, because the server is reachable, and as long as the server is reachable it is going to use only the first method, that is based on the TACACS what we have configured here. So this is the first preferable method. If it fails, let's say due to some reason, if the TACACS server is not reachable, then only the local authentication will be used. Okay, so in my case let's go and disconnect the let me remove the connection to the TACACS server, assuming the TACACS server fails, or maybe some kind of network issue. Now if I go to my computer and if I try to log in once again, this time with the user account on the TACACS server, it's not going to work, and the reason is because the TACACS server is not reachable. So it will try to verify whether this user account is in the local database. If it is not present, it will simply says the login is invalid. Now I want to make sure that I should be able to log in with my local user account in case if the TACACS server fails. So it is trying to log in with, first it will try to reach the TACACS server. That's what it was doing. And if the TACACS server is not reachable, then it will try to check the local database. And as per my local database, this user account was created, so it will allow me to log in. If you're using the real ACS servers, then the options will be like this. So once you log into the ACS server, you can see most of the options relating to user accounts will be inside these user and identity stores. We go to the users and create the user accounts, and of course configure the passwords here. And if you want to add the router 1 as a client, then most of these options will be inside the network resources and network devices and AAA clients. So add the router, and then also you can add an IP address or the subnets, and then we have to check the TACACS protocol here and configure the password here, and then click submit. There is an option of submit, and then save it.